Well, hello there, everyone. It's Tanya here from Meraki Coaching with your planetary update for the week beginning Monday, the 13th of April. I hope you're enjoying the Easter long weekend if you do have today off. And yeah, just being safe wherever you are in the world. This week, like last week, we had the full moon in Libra, which was highlighting relationships. And this week kind of continues on that theme a little bit. So we have Mars and Venus, who are pretty much kind of within a nice harmonious aspect with each other all week. And it is really, it's building on those themes from the full moon of finding that balance between being an individual and having your individual needs and wants fulfilled, but also being in relationship with others. And so because these are both in air signs, Mars in Aquarius, Venus in Gemini, it's thinking, it's getting into the mental state of that a little bit. Also Mars being in Aquarius, it's working towards the greater good of the collective if we're looking at it from a higher perspective. So this real drive to work together and do what we all need to do to get through this really unusual time together. Venus, with her values with relationships, she's here through in the third house in Gemini, and she is valuing, again, communication, and finding new ways to communicate with others, finding out new information about things. Perhaps now you've watched all of the things on Netflix or other streaming services, and you're wanting to learn something new. So it's about being curious about what else can you learn during this time, what new skill can you pick up, what else is going on out there for you. The other thing worth noting is that Mercury is in the early degrees of Aries, which is beautiful. We had like just 10-ish type weeks of Mercury in Pisces, and that had a retrograde, and it was all very confusing and murky, and yeah, it was pretty wild. So now that Mercury is in Aries, it's a fire sign, so it's a little bit more direct, it's a little bit more passionate. It can speak without thinking as well, so just be really careful that you're not shooting from the hip when it comes to things, that you're being careful and considered, especially with the people that you are living with. Yeah, but it is in another way, it's also just kind of really amplifying a new fire within us about the ideas of who we are and how we are creating our own routines and adjusting to this new way of living, which isn't forever. It's for right now, but it's how we are adjusting. I've in Australia, I think we've had 3 or 4 weeks of people working from home and self-isolating, and so now we're like settling into it. We'll see that as we go through the week, it's pretty much the same sort of thing, but then we've got the moon, which will be crossing over this the conjunction with Pluto and Jupiter on Wednesday, so it's amplifying some extra feelings of that and some extra emotions around our new way of working and how we're feeling about that. But yeah, you'll see then on, what day is it? The 16th, Thursday, the moon will jump into Aquarius and she'll travel over Mars, trining Venus, which is this extra push of emotional values and feelings, wanting to assert ourselves. And, it can be it's a really just beautiful time for relationships in general. It's, deepening them and thinking about who means a lot to us and who we want to spend our time with, whether that is together in the house or whether that is virtually, remotely. Mercury crosses over Chiron as well, has a conjunction. So again, it's amplifying like this whole teacher healer mode of ourselves, speaking up about what might be irritating us about other people, and learning from others, and learning about how others are doing things as well, how others are coping and creating their own routines and what works for them, and learning what works for ourselves as well. But then when we get sort of to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we end up having, Mercury is sort of doing this dancing around sort of from midweek, but we end up having this really nice aspect with Mars and Venus. So it can be, if you are with someone special, it might be a time where you talk about your feelings a little bit deeper. It can also just be talking about what is valuable to you right now. A little bit of fire, because Mercury rules the mind. It's like a little bit of fire behind our values and our ideas, and being able to communicate those to others, definitely with this drive from Mars helping us along there. And then we kind of get to the end of the week and we're in the last degree of the sun in Aries, because Taurus season begins on the 20th of April. So it's kind of like this last bit of fiery push to get things in place, because once we head into Taurus season, it is going to feel a lot easier to be grounded and to be at home with all these things around us. So it is this week of relationships, of getting our ideas in place, and of getting, thinking things out, using that fiery energy. And then we can settle into the nice grounded Taurus season, which actually quite enjoys being at home. I saw a great meme on the weekend about earth signs just praying for isolation to be over so they can self-isolate on their own terms. Being a Capricorn, I do identify with that, because earth signs do need that time to retreat from the world and to just be and be really grounded. So yeah, that's going to come up. And then also next week we have Pluto going retrograde, which is going to cause a bit of a shift and change in things, and then we'll start to head into more planets going retrograde in May. So it's kind of our last little push of things being direct, getting things moving before planets start switching. So it should be a nice week, hopefully without too many sort of seismic shifts going through the world. So take care, enjoy, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.